Hello to all of my friends across the world. This is Nancy, and I'm talking about March's frequency forecast for the year 2022. And although I am recording this right smack dab in the middle of a lot of turmoil that's happening in the world, I originally wrote this material several weeks ago, and I have been feeling the surges since January coming through. So I'm going to try to touch base with all of those frequencies that are coming in. So it's almost like a fabric I've been noticing. And, the fabric is made up of many, many threads going in several different directions. And so I found myself tuning in during a meditation as if I was trying to kind of take my needle and just pick up one frequency of a thread that's coming through that's impacting us all. And, I just couldn't do it. And so I'm going to be making a few videos over the next few weeks to try to kind of touch in with everything that's going on. But it is still the same, just like I said, for the year 2022, the frequencies that we're noticing are the frequencies of justice, beauty, and healing. And remember, this is the year of the healer. And with all the events happening in the world right now, I most certainly can see there's a tremendous amount of healing that is taking place. It's almost like these kind of musical notes that are happening along the way that can make this music together in the world. What's happening here is there's some really kind of discordant frequencies that are waving through, and you're being impacted by those frequencies, even if they're happening on the other side of the world. Just like any event that's happening on the other side of the world is also impacting you. So I'm going to be talking in this video about one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is an uprising, a surge in past lives that are being uncovered. There's this depth of past lives that are emerging in everyone's energy field of unresolved issues that are being kind of brought into the light and being healed. So I'll get into a little bit more of that. I am going to talk a little bit about the frequencies of what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, just kind of briefly touch on that, because again, I'm going to focus on the frequencies that are happening. And then some of the ascension symptoms that we're having. So I'm going to try to fit this in, but just know that I will be making some more videos about that. So kind of let me get started. So in January, I noticed as a clairvoyant, as a psychic who can see into the spiritual world at the same time I can see into the physical world, it was like suddenly there was this level of activity high above me. And so I used my mind's eye, you might kind of call it that way. And any of you can do this, just kind of close your eyes and see if you can kind of sense into those higher vibrations and frequencies. But I felt a lot of action, activity, activation happening at a very high level. So when I tuned in, my mind's eye was kind of showing me this battle between the light and the dark, a pretty intense battle that was happening. So this was around the 15th of January. At that time, I asked the spirit realm, I kind of just sent this kind of frequency message out there and said, yeah, I realize I'm this little human here on earth, but is there anything that I can do to help? And it sounds kind of silly, doesn't it, to think that we could do anything up there to help. But they said, no, just focus on your own backyard. Please focus on your own healing. Because even though, if we want to kind of think of the terms that's happening between Russia and the Ukraine, it's like, this kind of bully, or, I don't even think bully can describe it, but we'll talk about it as an energy of bullyishness coming into Ukraine. If you start tending to the bullies that are in your life, or those who kind of move through the world to kind of push you around energetically, standing up to them or saying, hey, you don't get to override me, right? I don't appreciate it when you override me, or try to intimidate, or try to project or force your opinion on me. So every time you and I do that in our own world, it's helping in enormous ways at a global level. The other thing the spiritual beings had said was that our intentions, our prayers make a lot more difference in the world than we could even begin to imagine or realize. So that's the takeaway from this video today. When you get to the end and you shut this off and you think, all right, my frequency that I add to the world is making a difference. So that's where we want to go there. So as we're kind of moving along, you want to be able to tend to your own backyard and tend to those ways, because this healing and this beauty frequency that's coming through, as well as the injustices of the world coming into balance and harmony and justice, those frequencies are truly coming through. And so it's going to be your job and your responsibility to try to rise up. Now, I will tell you that when I was feeling a bit despair, I was feeling kind of this depression, sadness, despair energy. I was feeling kind of nauseated. I've had this kind of ongoing, annoying headache. So it wasn't an incapacitating headache, but it was definitely annoying, where it just was kind of overshadowing everything I was doing. So all of this was happening, and I knew it was the frequencies in the world that is going on around me, and other places in the world. And so I really needed to increase my meditation time, which I encourage you all to increase your walking and your meditation time as well. So you can still feel those things, but what Spirit was saying is, still be in despair if your body needs to feel despair, sadness, grief, anger, rage. If it needs to feel those things, please feel those things, because those are body frequencies, those are body energies, and we don't want to discount or invalidate the feelings that your body is having. However, you want to still keep your heart open. And keeping your heart chakra open is really a simple thing to do. It doesn't require this advanced training. Remember, you're a spirit here on this earth having a human experience. You do have higher wisdom and knowledge. That's why they call it your higher spiritual self, because your higher spiritual self has the capacity to kind of get that bird's eye view about what's going on. So Yvonne was talking the other day, kind of talking to our grandson, because he had an experience. He's going to be 21 in April, so he's not little, but he had an experience where he's a barista at Starbucks, and someone came in. He wasn't there, but someone came into the store with a gun and had robbed them. That's a violent experience. That's a violent energy. And so the events that are happening in the world with warring energy can trigger more violence. So again, when it's right in our face, it can feel like we're not making any movement. The world is not getting better. But in actuality, it is getting better. It's just kind of getting flushed to the surface. It's in the maybe the subconscious, deep under the earth, but there's so much photonic light flooding in right now. It's just going to flush it to the surface so that we can transform it into balance and harmony and clear it out. So I don't mean to oversimplify this at all, because my grandson, he was really shaken up. Even though he wasn't there, his dear friends were. So he had kind of that secondary trauma from the event. Just like all of us trying to imagine living in a world where there's an invading country. Even though you're not there, you can imagine what that feels like, and you can kind of get that secondary trauma from that. But let's think about all of these in the form of frequency. We want to try to keep our vibe up. We want to do that self-care piece, because these ascension symptoms are really triggering some of the symptoms to be quite stronger. And some of those are in relationship to um, panic attacks, anxiety, like I said, migraines, or it might trigger you to want to war with your family members, war with your partner, war with your children, war with your community. So again, you need to tend to your own backyard, and you need to take responsibility for your triggers, your reactions, your responses, because that's going to help heal for the entire world. But I still want you to feel what you're feeling. I just highly recommend that you just don't live there for any length of time, because one of the biggest things I've been noticing as well is our mental health is really hanging in the balance. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter your life circumstances. All of us mentally are feeling mentally and emotionally off kilter. So we want to just keep staying mindful of that. All right, so then what happened on February 1st? I am getting into the March frequency forecast, I promise you. But what happened on February 1st on the Chinese New Year, that's when it's almost like I heard this crack, like a thunder and lightning, that just kind of rips across the sky. So I heard that, and then I just saw this big opening happen, and then all this blue photonic light came in, and all these kind of blue light codes came in as well. And I'm going to be talking about that in a different video. So I knew change was in the air, because anytime I see this flood of blue light and this flood of blue light codes, something happened. So the first time I saw them, we had a global pandemic with COVID-19. So just to let you know, so far I've seen this 3 times, and so far there's been big events that have happened right afterwards. So now let's get into March. So the March frequency forecast is helping us to heal a lot of past lives. So a past life is where your spirit lived at a different time, a different year, a different culture, a different religion, a different, maybe you were in a male body or a female body or a child's body. So we've had these past lives that have been buried deep, and they're starting to come to the surface. So as a psychic reader who's been working with people for 25 years, it's like I'd see once in a while a past life would come up. It is true, it comes up in quite a few readings. Or someone might say, oh, I'd like a past life reading to get some insight as to who they were before. But suddenly now, leading up to the March frequency forecast, it's like little black balloons kind of tied to your aura or to your body. It's like, I'm sometimes seeing like a little bit of your eyes coming through, your little arms and legs coming through, but these kind of black balloons just filling the aura. Now, I want to stress here, black doesn't mean evil. Black just means old. It's old energy. And so as a psychic, I can tell when I'm looking in your energy field that the blacker it is, the older it is. Sometimes the blacker it is, it may mean abuse and violence during ancient times. But I always like to explain to you that the analogy is, if you've got old cottage cheese in your refrigerator for a year and you're cleaning out your refrigerator and it's jammed in the back there behind the pickle jar, and you open it up and it's full of black mold, it's not evil cottage cheese, it's just old cottage cheese. So I just want to remind you of this, so that if you go into meditation and you want to start releasing any little black balloons that you're seeing that represent old past lives, just know that they can be quite a simple, lovely past life, but it's just time to resolve them. However, there's some really old past lives coming up. So you may have heard of Atlantis, you may have heard of Lemuria, which were highly advanced ancient civilizations. And the way the story goes, by whoever created this story or shared the story, is that there was an imbalance of power. Sound familiar? We are an evolving advanced culture, not as advanced as Lemuria and Atlantis, but we're heading in that direction with this great awakening. And we have the potential to have imbalances of power, which we're seeing right now. So that frequency and imbalance of power is really actively shifting back and forth as our global view, worldview, is trying to determine which direction we're going to go as a humanity. But what I'm seeing is it's just such an old archaic frequency that the new frequencies, the kinder, the gentler, the more caring frequencies are coming together. So we're really seeing this as I kind of look at the frequencies that are happening between Ukraine and Russia. So in these old past lives, you could have lived 100,000 years ago, and you lived in Lemuria, you lived in Atlantean times. You were part of that advanced culture, and you were maybe the victim of the power imbalance, or maybe you contributed to the power imbalance. And now that needs to be resolved within you. So that you have the opportunity to do something different. And I really see this going on because the Ukraine and Russia are not the only countries at war, as we know. Just look back. Since Vietnam, there's been this, I think, one big continuous warring frequency and vibration at different levels in different ways. But those frequencies are moving into this higher levels of frequencies of beauty, healing, and justice. And some of those are being resolved and some are not being resolved. But at some level, there's new light coming into those kind of warring frequencies. And you have a big part in that because you can make a difference. All right, let me just take a look at my notes to see if I am missing anything else. So why am I talking about March frequency forecast in relationship to past lives? Because of all the past lives coming up out of the earth. So it doesn't take much of a stretch to go into the past of our own life in the last couple of 100 years of our ancestors' lives to know that there's been a lot of atrocities against humanity. So it doesn't take a big stretch to know that. And so what's coming up are all these unresolved issues are coming to the surface to be brought into the light, to be resolved, to be healed. But the same thing, there's a lot of old past life karma that's in the earth that's rising to the surface to be brought into the light, to be shifted by the light, brought into the higher frequencies. And then those of us on the ground finding problem-solving ways to handle it differently than than generations in the past have handled it. So how's that going to look for you? Well, past lives can impact you more than you may realize. You can have a past life on the surface that is influencing your energy field, and then you can kind of act out that past life with others. So March, you're going to see a lot of up and down, and this is the thing. You're going to have to try really hard not to get triggered. You're going to have to try really hard not to get sparked, to be reactive, to respond. So right now, I am inviting you to kind of play with the intention of the pause button. And what I mean by that is give yourself a moment to pause with something that's just happened before it kind of comes out of your mind, because you may keep your mouth shut, but your mind may be judgmental or critical or harsh. So you want to kind of take a pause, hit the pause button, and then you just kind of want to ground yourself a little stronger, and then check in if you can to see, do I need to participate in this reaction? Do I need to add a voice to it? And yes, you might, or no, you might not. But it's going to be between you and your spirit for you to know. Nobody else can tell you that if you need to respond or not. So a lot of past life stuff's coming up. I don't see this month of March getting much simpler, easier. I see it kind of rolling on into April. I see it rolling on into May. And then towards the end of May is when we're going to start to see, based on my guidance from spirit and my own kind of intuitive process, that, we've got a few months here where things are going to feel a little unsettled. However, it's been unsettled. It's been unsettled for the past 10 years. You are getting stronger in your ability to cope. You are getting stronger in your ability to respond to what life throws at you. I love, I love people. I love to connect with the spirit of people. I love to connect with your personalities. I love to know your story. I love to know what got you here to where you are. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been working with people for 25 years or beyond that, even as a nurse. And what I'm starting to see is a strength and a resilience that's coming to the surface that you may not have even guessed that you were capable of. When I was kind of watching the news and I saw a woman who's a grandmother like me, and she chose to stay in the Ukraine, and she signed up, stood in line to get a gun to fight. She's never shot a gun before, but you could just see in her eyes that I'm going to participate in this. And I could tell by looking at her eyes and her aura and the energy around her that that was the moment that she's being spiritually called to rise up, to stand up, and to participate. Not everyone is called at that level. So only you know what you're being called to do. But shifts are happening, whether it's at the 3D level, which is what we're witnessing now at this kind of warring level. Then you have the 4D level, which is your heart level, which is the bridge to help kind of rise up to higher frequencies. And then you've got the 5D level, that where we can kind of see the bigger picture about what needs to happen. And that's the energy of frustration that you are going to be seeing in this month of March. The frustration is when you've got the capacity to see the bigger picture, when you've got the capacity to know that war, the frequency of war, is an old, archaic way of doing things, and yet the tanks are rumbling along the ground and missiles are being hauled, into position. And you're like, wait a minute, how can this be happening? How can this frequency get out of control when we know that there are so many other ways to do things? And so some of you on the ground are going to be feeling it intensely. And then some of you are in the trees kind of looking down in the bird's eye view. But just know, whether you're on the ground overwhelmed with feelings, or you've got the bird's eye view and you're frustrated because you just want to scream and say, what are you thinking? We're all on the same page. Even though it feels like we're opposite, I promise you at that soul level, we're on the same page. So let me kind of talk a little bit, give you an example of this. So there's a certain area in the Ukraine, and in that area, you've got people from all walks of life, just like you do in your own town, your own city, your own part of the world. And we have so what happened in this area of Ukraine is you've got the politicians, you have the CEOs of company, you have high-tech people, you have bankers, you have skateboarders, you have seamstresses, you have baristas that make the coffee. And when Ukraine started standing up and the people started standing up, all the bankers and the CEOs and the mayors of the town and the skaters and snowboarders and baristas all came together, and they pushed the Russian troops backwards. Did they want to know what each other's religious beliefs were? No. Did they want to know what color is your skin? No. Did they care what your sexuality was? No. Did they care what your pronouns were? It's like, no. It was like, do you love your country? Yes. And are we on the same page? Yes. And are we determined to bring peace and harmony and protect our country? Yes. And that's what I love about humanity, because no matter how much a division is going on with all of you right now, when the rubber meets the road, I know that you all would come together to fight for peace and harmony. So why wait? Why wait for a war to happen to start coming together? So again, that's another invitation that I have for you today. All right, now let's see here. Um, we are having DNA changes. We have dormant DNA strands that couldn't be activated before because the vibration and the frequency on the earth wouldn't allow it. But now, well, let's say not allow it. How about, let's say, wasn't a supportive environment for higher ways of thinking. So remember, I talked about that frustration. And when you know that the whole world needs to be loving, and you've got the DNA to back that up, but the rest of the world isn't there yet, yeah, that's when frustration comes in. Just know that your DNA are getting activated so that you can help hold the vision, that as everyone else starts to awaken their dormant DNA, that will allow for higher frequencies of knowledge to come in. Just know you're holding that space. You have a job. You are being called. So, all right. Sorry, I just looked at my notes. It says, remember not to take each other out. Remember not to attack each other. Remember not to undermine each other. Remember that we're all being impacted by these energies, whether it's the president of your country, whether it's your boss that you don't like very much, whether it's your neighbor that drives you crazy. We're all experiencing this photonic light that is awakening us. You just might have been kind of shaken awake a little bit sooner. But everybody's awakened, and even if you don't like their ideas and opinions, there is a thread of consciousness in those ideas and opinions too. So it's just time for us to, what's your name? Are we on the same page? Do we want to be at peace? Whatever else comes with who you are doesn't matter to me anymore. And so that's what I encourage us to move into. Top-down authority. Whew. That's going out with the dinosaurs. We're having this bottom-up authority that's coming through, and the light is coming through. And again, that example I gave of the snowboarders, the baristas, the seamstresses, the grandmothers, it doesn't matter. That bottom-up authority is on the rise. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't think so. I think that that's enough. That's plenty for today. And so I will just continue to share what I'm picking up frequency-wise. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you what not to do. That's a you job. I always say there's a God job and there's a you job. And if you work together with the God of your heart, then you're unstoppable. So I want you to remember that. Subscribing to my page. So if you want to click the button to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I just discovered something a little new I want to share with you, because I'm not this huge technological person. But what I discovered was, when people make comments, I love to read the comments. I get an email that you've made a comment, and then I read that in my email, and then I go back and I like to respond to it, to your comment. So then one day I went to go look, it was the plant conversation with plants, and I went and it was like, oh, there's a lot of comments here. How come I didn't know about these? And then I realized, oh, when you don't subscribe, I don't get notified when you write a comment. So If you write a comment and you want it to come directly to me so that I can see it, click the subscribe button. And please share this video with who you think would love to kind of tap in and hear about the March frequency forecast. So I think I just want to wrap up. We're going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to be okay. We just need to keep our wits and our head about us and be the change that we want to see in the world. All right, everyone, take care. Let's be sending out lots of those lovely prayers to everyone. Bye-bye.